was a warm summer day in Jamaica, and I leapt off the crowded bus and ran through the downpour to the Robin's Nest orphanage. My speed wasn't out of a great excitement to be there, but rather the simple desire to get out of the downpour. However, when I got inside, I didn't realize what I was going to learn would probably change my life. When I got inside, I was quickly put to work decorating a chain with each of the orphans' names on it. While working, I realized that each individual link represented an orphan without a family, an orphan without anyone to call mommy or daddy, an orphan who was completely alone in the world. One of the names that I remember was Sanique. I never got to meet Sanique out of the various orphans I met, but the name just sticks in my mind. She's still there, hoping, waiting, and longing to be adopted someday, to have a family. Adoption is relevant to each and every one of us. As Christians, it is actually biblical. James talks about caring for orphans, which I will discuss more later. Also, anyone who wants to have a family in the future should consider adoption. I'm credible to speak about adoption because I had first-hand experience with the orphans in Jamaica. I also have credible sites that I researched on. David Platt wrote, "A compassionate call to counterculture in a world of orphans and widows." I also have a study done by Waniri and Onyemu entitled "Intestinal Homeostasis and Nutritional Status of Children Living in Orphanages in Benin City, Nigeria." Also, Yendorf and Samlaba's study published in Child Care and Practice entitled "Do Social Support, Self-Efficacy, and Resilience Influence the Experience of Stress in Ghanaian Orphans?" Today, I would like to discuss the orphan crisis in the world today, as well as the possible solution to that of adoption. After today, I hope you will each consider adoption more seriously. We have an orphan crisis in the world today, whether we realize it or not. In Platt's book, "A Compassionate Call to Counterculture in a World of Orphans and Widows," written in 2015, he wrote that there are 18 million orphans in the world today. 18 million children without a mother or a father. This number is hard to comprehend, so compared to the state of Indiana, that's about 3 times the amount of people in the entire state of Indiana. You might say, why does this matter to you? It doesn't necessarily mean that these orphans are in trouble if there's a lot of them, but they actually are in trouble. Orphans face physical and mental issues as a direct result of being without a family. A study conducted by Waniri and Onyemu at the Institute of Child Health in the University of Benin in Nigeria, they studied 10 orphanages. Through their study, they determined that inadequate access to clean drinking water, health care, poor sanitation, and poor nutritional status characterize most orphanages in developing countries. Each of these factors can lead to physical diseases that make it hard for a child to grow up and have fun. In addition to the physical problems that orphans face, they also face mental issues sometimes. In a 2015 study by Yendorf and Samlaba, they reported that about twice as many orphans had symptoms of clinical anxiety when tested compared to non-orphans. This helps to show that the benefit of a family is very clear. The children without a family suffered anxiety more than the children with a family did. Now that we have seen the extent of the problem, the orphan crisis, you may wonder what the solution is, or you may already have guessed it. It's adoption. People are not following the command that James wrote about in James 1:27. He wrote, "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Too often, we think this is an issue for other Christians to consider, not ourselves. However, this passage doesn't give us the chance to deny our own responsibility. It says, religion that God, our Father, accepts. If we consider God our Father, which as Christians I assume many of us do, we can't deny that it's also our problem to look after orphans as well as widows, as it mentions. And this can be done through adoption. David Platt wrote about his own adoption story, about the adoption of his son, Caleb, in his book, A Compassionate Call to Counterculture in a World of Orphans and Widows. For 5 years, David and his wife, Heather, struggled with infertility. Finally, they turned to adoption as the second best option that they could pursue. In his book, he wrote about meeting his son for the first time and how it changed his life. He says, everything changed when we first saw the face of a precious 10-month-old boy in Kazakhstan who was in need of a mom and dad. Everything changed when we visited his orphanage, saw the children playing outside, and saw their crib-filled rooms inside. Everything changed when we realized that the statistics represent individual children, just like our soon-to-be son. 2 weeks after they adopted their son, Caleb, Heather, David's wife, found out she was pregnant. This helps to show that it was God's will that they adopt Caleb. God waited 5 years and refused that they have children for 5 years and finally allowed them to become pregnant 2 weeks after they adopted Caleb. They found out that adoption isn't simply the second best option they could pursue. This is just one of many adoption stories I could tell you. It benefited everyone involved. Some of you may argue that it's too expensive to adopt. However, if God is wanting you to adopt, I guarantee that He will make you able to afford it. In conclusion, we have an adoption crisis, an orphan crisis in the world today. Those 18 million children without parents, struggling both mentally and physically. Adoption is a biblical principle. Well, adoption may not be a biblical principle, but caring for orphans is, and so that puts adoption in that category. So what can each of you do? Just consider adoption. Just give it a little bit of consideration. At the very least, pray about it. I understand that not everyone will be called to do it, but my hope is that one of you in this room will. Go to Bethany.org, I suggest, and there are 400 children who are up for adoption. It tells about them on the page, and you can read about them and just pick one and pray for them. Because just like Sonique in Jamaica, they are clinging on to hope. Hope for a better future. Hope for a family. Hope for someone who cares. Could that someone be someone like you?
Imagine this. Your dream home with your dream job, a happy family and happy kids and happy marriage with any kind of pet that you can imagine. Your home filled with everything that you could want. This is what college gives you, right? Well, now imagine this. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You're drowning in debt. You can barely afford to keep enough food in the pantry to feed your family for 2 weeks until you get your next paycheck. You're paying bills that you don't even really know how they got to that amount. This doesn't happen to college graduates, right? Well, wrong. Private education is expensive, and I think we are all very well aware of that. And I'm assuming that many of you have taken out student loans to help pay for that expense. And I'm assuming that not many of you have taken the alternative route to paying for that expense. Well, I personally am taking that alternative route to paying for college, and that makes me credible to come and talk to you today about this. I have done lots of research, and my three sources that I'm going to use the most is Dave Ramsey, who is an expert in financial and debt. The article, Student Debt Effects on Financial Well-Being, Research and Policy Implications, by Elliot William and Melinda Lewis, and the College Board website. I want you to understand that there is a huge problem in America, and that's debt. And one of the causes of that debt is student loans. But I also want you to know how to prevent that form of debt to wreak havoc on your life. But before we get to solving the problem, we must understand the problem. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, according to Dave Ramsey. And the average family household is over $90,000 in debt. That's an accumulation of credit card debt, mortgages, auto loans, and student loans. We live in a coveting world. We feel entitled to the greatest and the best. But in order to achieve that, we feel that we need to take out loans to pay for that. So now that we understand that America owes a ton of debt and some of the reasons as to why we are in such a debt crisis, let's discuss one cause of that problem: student loans. Student debt strings from the American dream. We want that perfect home and that perfect job that I talked about at the beginning of our speech. And we think that in order to achieve that we have to take out loans. And one of the things is that we were raised to believe that college is the only way to achieve that dream job. And although that for many good paying jobs you do need a college degree, and college is good, don't get me wrong, but it causes students to take out student loans when they don't have the money to pay it back, and they may never have the money to pay it back. The Lewis family, in their article, discusses this trap that we find ourselves in. According to the College Board website, tuition in 2015 raised 22%, causing students to take out more debt than they ever had to before. Your salary the first year getting out of college will be the lowest that it'll ever be, which makes sense if you think about it. But with student loans, you have to pay those bills. And so when you have to pay those bills, you find yourself relying on credit to buy other things, such as a house or furniture or a car. This affects every aspect of your life. But it especially affects your credit score and your retirement. A student who takes out student loans will actually have a 24-point lower credit score than those who don't take out student loans. Not only this, but students who don't take out any loans actually have 52% more in their retirement than those who take out student loans. That's 52%. That's over double of what you would have if you take out student loans. So now that we understand that student loans are a cause of debt and some of the havoc that it can cause after college, let's talk about some ways to prevent this debt. Now, my solution that I'm proposing to you is not an easy one, nor is it a glamorous one, but it works. Dave Ramsey, who is the financial expert, he tells us on his website that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of scholarships out there, that we just have to go and look for them. Not only that, but that there are scholarships out there for college college students. It's not just for high school seniors. And as long as we take the time and the energy to go out and get them and fill them out, then we could get so much money from them. My sister, who goes to Anderson University, she got her entire freshman year of college paid for. That's $37,000 paid for in scholarships. It's not easy, but it works. And you get money for them. You just have to take the time to do it. But what about just working? Like while you're in college, work and get a job. And I understand that college is busy. Like our lives are crazy. But if you just make it a priority, you can find time to get a few hours in. So now some of you might be thinking, okay, but I've already taken out student loans. What do I do now? Don't take them lightly. Get rid of them as soon as you can, because you don't want it to wreak so much havoc on your life. Set a goal for yourself and get it paid off. In conclusion, America is in massive debt. And a lot of families, many, many families, are living paycheck to paycheck. And student debt is one of the causes of that massive overall picture of debt. But you can work and fill out scholarships to help prevent you from having that debt under your belt. I spent many nights as a senior in high school filling out scholarships. And I got the majority of my freshman year paid for. I didn't get it all paid for, but I got a lot of it paid for. And right now, I'm working about 15 hours a week. I am going to school full-time in the most intense 3-year program that Grace offers. And I still have a social life. And I have yet to take out a student loan. It's possible. It's not easy, and it's not glamorous, but it's possible. So I urge you to consider paying for college through scholarships and working, because in the long run, it's worth it. Thank you.
Struggling to lose weight after birth after her first 2 children, but she was still determined, Wendy approached her doctor for help. My portion sizes were really out of control, and because I was not exercising, I had no energy. I had been prescribed with antidepressants and I hated my job, which didn't help anything. So it wasn't long before my weight started to pile on. After my second child, Benjamin, he was born with autism, and I knew he would use a lot of my energy. Wendy knew she needed to be educated on nutrition and exercise and changed her approach of eating. So she joined Get Healthy services to get her answers. Why do you need to know about healthy living? Living an unhealthy lifestyle can affect you emotionally, physically, and mentally. And today in our culture, it's really hard to live, eat, and create healthy habits. Why should you care? There are risks if you aren't living a healthy lifestyle. And being a Christian, we are called to treat our bodies with respect and have healthy habits. My information today comes from the book Lifestyle Management and Health Service and Social Care by Amanda Toe and Jim McKenna. The Holy Bible, today's New International Version, or TNIV. The book Applied Exercise Psychology, A Practitioner's Guide to Improving Client Health and Fitness by Mark H. Anshaw. Personal stories from Get Healthy, and facts from DoSomething.org. Today in my speech, I will discuss facts about a healthy lifestyle, benefits of living a healthy lifestyle, and risks of not living a healthy lifestyle, and how a healthy lifestyle relates to being a Christian. After hearing a personal story of someone who once struggled in health and now lives a healthy lifestyle, I hope you are more interested in learning to change your healthy lifestyle. Some facts about healthy lifestyle. According to DoSomething.org, more than 1/3 of adults and over 12.5 million children and teens in the U.S. are obese. In the last 30 years, obesity in children and teens have nearly tripled. 1 can of soda contains 10 teaspoons of sugar. average American adult drinks about 500 cans of soda each year, estimating about 52 pounds of sugar consumed in a soft drink alone. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day because it feeds your body and mind with necessary nutrients and energy to function throughout the day. Eating breakfast regularly will also help keep weight off because it gets your metabolism going. Teens need 9 or more hours of sleep per night for the body to function properly. Foods that don't expire contain unnatural preservatives and chemicals that deteriorate your body. Focus instead on fruits, vegetables, lean meats, whole grains, and low-fat dairies, and above all, moderation of everything that you eat. Now that you know some facts about healthy living, let's focus on my second point: benefits of living a healthy lifestyle and risks of not living a healthy lifestyle. Benefits of living a healthy lifestyle include a higher self-esteem. Author Mark Anshel, in his book Applied Exercise Psychology, A Practitioner's Guide to Improving Client and Health Fitness, states, any behavior such as exercise that induces a sense of competence and achievement and that is perceived as enjoyable and produces a desirable change in person's physical characteristics will positively influence self-esteem, particularly in the physical dimension. Another benefit is you're less likely to be stressed. Anshel also states, a mechanism by which this positive effect occurs seems to be the short-term distraction from unpleasant thoughts and increasing feelings of control or commitment that buffers the impact of a stressful event. Stress-reducing properties are more likely to if each exercise session lasts at least 30 minutes. Lastly, another benefit includes being happier more often. It has been said that moderate intensity exercise, particularly aerobic exercises, have been repeatedly shown to reduce negative mood and improve your positive mood state. Some risks include depression. Anshel says in his book, activity at a baseline was negatively associated with depression. 25 years later, that is, more actively predicted lower depression. Another risk is obesity. Author Jim McKenna and Miranda Toe write from their book Lifestyle Management in Health and Social Care. It is widely accepted that obesity is caused by the interaction between genetics and environmental factors. Although the genetics cannot be altered, it is possible to modify the environmental factors and thereby influence the development of obesity. Environmental factors consist of a number of social and psychological and behavioral factors and include inactivity, bad diet, and eating habits, drinking, and smoking. Now that you know benefits of a healthy lifestyle and risks of an unhealthy lifestyle, let's take a look at how living a healthy lifestyle can relate to Christianity and how we live for Christ. God refers in the Bible to our bodies as a temple. In 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20, it states, do you not know that your bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. If something isn't yours, what do? You respect it. Feeding your body with the correct nutrition and getting the correct exercise is respecting your temple. Romans 12:1 says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is true worship. 1 Timothy 4:8 through 9 says, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promises for both the present life and the life to come. This is trustworthy saying and deserves full acceptance. In conclusion, a review of my main points is facts about living a healthy lifestyle, benefits of living a healthy lifestyle, and risks of not living a healthy lifestyle, and how a healthy lifestyle relates to being a Christian. Going back to the beginning of my speech, as Wendy embraced a healthier lifestyle, she lost 36 kilograms and went from being a size 16 to size 8, maintaining her new weight even after her third child was born. She felt it was important to share this and pass this down to her own children, because she never got that as a child. Thanks to her coach, Wendy no longer looks at the scale, but rather the way her clothes fit and how her body looks. She exercises every day and can finally keep up with her kids dancing, playing, and chasing them around the house. Through support of her health coach, family, and friends, Wendy now leads a very active lifestyle and has inspired those around her to follow in her footsteps.
Lightheaded. So tired. I feel like there's 100 bricks on my eyelids right now. But I have to get through this exam. Why am I feeling this way? Many experience this situation, but don't really know that it could possibly be because they missed breakfast that morning. Here's the question. Are your eating habits affecting the way you feel right now from breakfast? The answer is yes. Your breakfast may not still be in your system, but the decision that you made at lunch was affected by the decisions that you made in breakfast this morning. I've seen up close the effects of a person who missed breakfast. My own sister doesn't eat breakfast very often on a daily basis, but she does say she probably should eat breakfast on a daily basis. In studying at the library, I have found many experiments on the way missing breakfast can be caused by unwanted effects like fatigue. My main resources come from researchers such as Scott Connors, Mansour Kamativ, Sarah Morose, Lauren Campbell, and Claire Henderson from the Carson College of Business at Washington State University, as well as Nafis Fazi, Iqbal Khan, Suhail Azmi, Aniz Ahmed, and Nagim Kaki from the Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College and Hospital, also known as JN. And researcher Dara Mohammadi, who writes for a number of different companies such as The Observer, The Lancet, and New Scientists. Mohammadi is a well-known author and journalist in London, and a winner of the World Health Summit's Next Generation of Science Journalist 2016 award. In the amount of time it could take for you to have a breakfast meal, I'm going to identify the problem in avoiding breakfast, explain the causes of avoiding breakfast, and give a solution in eating breakfast. Now that I have told you that eating breakfast is the right choice, let's identify the problem in eating breakfast. People are not getting enough nutrition in the morning to sustain themselves throughout the day. In an experiment conducted by Dara Mohammadi, involving half of a randomized group skipping breakfast and the other half eating 700 calories during breakfast, results showed that those who ate breakfast had better control over their glucose intake for the day, leading to a lower risk of type 2 diabetes later in life. Those who ate breakfast had more energy to move around in the morning. A quote from Dara Mohammadi says, "Our bodies are strongly evolved to defend against weight loss. So if you've eaten fewer calories in the morning, your body might compensate by doing less throughout the day." Well, at this point, most people in this room may be agreeing with me, believing that breakfast is a good thing. Only some of them make the effort to find the time to eat breakfast. In the beginning of my research, one of the main reasons I found people tend to skip breakfast is something that continues to be known as one of the most important assets in today's world: time. Scott Connors, Mansour Kamativ, and other researchers from University of Washington State studied the effects that time can have on the average human being. Time can influence enjoyment of leisure activities. Have you ever wished there was more time in the day? A few days ago, I handed out a survey to 3 males and 3 females, all within the ages of 19 and 22. The survey contained the same question. Do you give yourself enough time in the morning to eat breakfast? Among those who said yes, also said that they like it because they know it gives them energy to sustain them throughout the day. Those who said no said that they would eat breakfast, however, it would have to be something that wasn't very difficult and didn't take a lot of time. Finding something can be a difficult task, especially if eating breakfast takes place early in the morning, with little to no time. The people who said yes agreed with Dara Mohammadi, who I quoted earlier, and said that in eating fewer calories, your body makes up for the loss of energy by doing less. Many of us know the feeling that making the right decision gives us. So why not make the right decision in this case? Why not make the right decision to honor the body that God gave you, to give your body the nutrients that it needs? After informing you of the causes of avoiding breakfast, I now want to discuss a solution. My advice? Start making the change and give yourself time in the morning to eat breakfast. To quote researchers including Nafis Fazi and Iqbal Khan from the Jawaharlal Nehru Medical and College Hospital, breakfast is one of the most integral components of an individual's diet. 100% of the subjects from my survey agreed with Fazi. It is not a matter of wanting to eat breakfast. It is a matter of making the time to do it. Just do it. 15 to 20 minutes of sleep is not what you need. Eating breakfast is, because it will make you feel so much more energized throughout the day. Finding the time to eat breakfast may be difficult, but in reviewing my speech, I want to stress the importance of it. To review, identifying the problems in avoiding breakfast is essential to your journey in eating a daily breakfast. People, especially students such as you, don't get enough nutrients in the morning. Sustenance is a requirement in order to receive energy and to give top performance in all of your classes. The causes of avoiding breakfast mainly have to do with time. Most students would rather sleep in than take the 15 or so minutes it takes to give themselves the nutrition their body needs. The solution is to eat breakfast. Making time in the morning to eat breakfast will give you more energy than the extra sleep. In conclusion, I urge you to make the time in the morning to just eat breakfast. Give yourself the energy that you need throughout the day. When your alarm goes off in the morning, don't think about sleeping for 15 more minutes. Instead, imagine the satisfaction of your full stomach as you leave your dorm to go ace that exam. Thank you.
It's a beautiful day on the 4th of July. You're sitting down at a picnic table to enjoy a holiday meal with your family. There's hamburgers, corn on the cob, pasta salad, and potato chips, plus ice cream for dessert. What you probably don't realize is that every item I just listed contains ingredients that have been genetically modified. A GMO, or a genetically modified organism, is a plant, animal, or microorganism whose genes have been changed from their original structure. An example with food would be inserting the DNA from one seed into the DNA of another seed. So this enables a variety of foods. Some abnormal foods like square watermelon, but also common staples in the US, like corn, soy, and canola oil. According to the US Department of Agriculture, 93% of soy, 70% of corn, and 78% of cotton is genetically modified in the US. As consumers, you have the right to be informed about the harmful effects of eating genetically modified food and how to avoid it. My credibility comes from my family switching from conventional food to organic food about 5 years ago. And my information comes from the book GMO Myths and Truths by Claire Robinson, John Fagan, and Michael Antonio, the article Glyphosate, Its Effects on Humans by Andrew Campbell, and an article by Jeffrey Smith, American consumer activist and author. So today I'm going to discuss the problem with GMO food, why it's prevalent and why it's not safe, and solutions to avoid it, what others have done and what you can do. Once you've learned why GMOs are prevalent, you can better understand why they're dangerous to your health. The reason that scientists genetically alter food is so that they can add additional qualities to it, like resistance to herbicides or delayed ripening. And this gives corporations more money because the food lasts longer. So today Monsanto is the main company that produces genetically modified seeds and Roundup, which is an herbicide. So Monsanto's seeds are immune to their Roundup, meaning that if you planted like a field of corn and sprayed it with the Roundup, the corn would grow while the weeds would die. And in theory, it's a good idea, but it means that the corn is being repeatedly sprayed with pesticides. So now that you know how prevalent GMOs are, you can better understand the health dangers involved in consuming them. Genetically modified food is not safe to eat. The first reason is that regulators such as the FDA don't require long-term tests on GMOs. John Fagan, PhD in molecular biology and co-author of the book GMO Myths and Truths, explains that long-term animal feeding trials are needed in order to detect the long-term effects of GMOs on humans. But currently no long-term tests are required by regulators anywhere in the world. Giles Servinley, a French molecular biologist, decided to change that. He conducted an experiment with 2 groups of rats that he observed for 2 years. So the first group was fed GMO corn, and the second group was fed corn that was not genetically modified. In Greg White's article published by GMO News, he explains the results of this study. So the rats that were fed the GMO corn developed severe liver and kidney damage, and over the 24 months, 80% of them developed 3 or more large tumors. After the 24-month period, 70% of them had died. So this long-term test obviously had very negative results, and this can accurately predict the long-term effects for humans. The second reason it's not safe is that it's sprayed with cancer-causing pesticides. Monsanto's Roundup, which is used on all genetically modified crops, contains glyphosate as the main ingredient, and as you can see, it makes up 41% of Roundup. This chemical is classified as a carcinogen according to the World Health Organization. Andrew Campbell's article, Glyphosate and Its Effects on Humans, states that the National Pesticide Information Center calculates U.S. crops are treated with 3.1 pounds of glyphosate per acre. So when we buy genetically modified food, we're eating this cancer-causing pesticide. Jeffrey Smith's article, Protect Yourself from Genetically Modified Crops, states that long after we stop eating GMOs and pesticides, they can still reproduce harmful proteins in our bodies. This is because DNA is the blueprint that tells the body how to make new proteins. So now that we've discussed the problems caused by both GMOs and pesticides, let's talk about some solutions to avoid them. First, we'll discuss what others have done. 38 countries have realized their negative effect and have banned them. This includes the green areas in almost all of Europe, as well as Japan, Peru, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Algeria. People have also created the Non-GMO Project in the US, which is a nonprofit organization whose goal is to inform people what's in their foods. And they've created the non-GMO label so that people can tell when a food item does not contain any genetically modified ingredients. So now that you know what others have done, let's talk about what you can do. Today, almost all corn, soy, canola oil, and sugar is genetically modified. Because these ingredients are in almost all food items, the only way to ensure that you're avoiding both GMOs and pesticides is to buy food that's labeled organic. So, here's an example of your normal peanut butter versus your organic peanut butter. And your normal contains corn syrup, sugar, and soy, which are all GMOs. It also contains hydrogenated oils, which are bad for you, and 10 things you can't pronounce, which are preservatives. Versus your organic peanut butter, which contains peanuts and salt. So there's a big difference between the two. There's also a difference between the non-GMO label and the organic label. The organic label is automatically non-GMO, and it also has the added benefits of no preservatives, pesticides, or artificial flavors. So what you can do is buy organic. This way you're avoiding both GMOs and pesticides. So look for the organic label on the food that you buy in grocery stores and tell your friends and family to do the same. So today we've discussed the problems with genetically modified food, why it's prevalent and why it's not safe, and we've discussed solutions to avoid it, what others have done, how it's banned in 38 countries, and what you can do. You can buy organic, and you can tell your friends to buy organic. So the next time you sit down to a family meal, think about whether the food that you're eating contains GMOs and pesticides. You can decide to reduce or eliminate these harmful chemicals from your body. Every time you buy something, you're voting for what you want in your food, whether that's genetically altered food with cancer-causing pesticides or organic food with naturally occurring vitamins and nutrients. Ultimately, the choice is up to you, so vote wisely.
Jesus into your heart. I'm pretty sure I would hold it. By the time I turned 18, I had probably asked Jesus into my heart 5,000 times. It all started when I was 4 years old. I was genuinely concerned if I'd be going to heaven or hell when I died, so I asked my parents, and they led me down the Romans road to the sinner's prayer. I asked Jesus into my heart for the first time. I seemed sincere, I seemed confident. I wrote the date in the front page of my Bible, and soon after I was baptized for the first time. This gave me confidence for about a decade, until I was a freshman in high school. My Sunday school teacher taught a lesson from Matthew 7 about how many people would go through their lives thinking they were saved until the final judgment day, and Jesus would say to them, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And I was terrified. Was I one of those people? Did I really know what I was doing when I was 4 years old? So I asked Jesus into my heart again, but this time I was going to be more intentional about my faith. But all this did was start me on a cycle. I would ask Jesus into my heart and feel confident for a little while, until doubt would creep in again. And I never got full assurance of my salvation, no matter how many times or how sincerely I asked Jesus into my heart. This story comes from the book Stop Asking Jesus Into Your Heart by J.D. Greer. Unfortunately, it's a story that many of us can probably identify with. What you may not have realized before is that oftentimes problems with assurance of salvation come from using this phrase, ask Jesus into your heart. Because in reality, no one is saved from asking Jesus into their heart. As Christians in this room today, many of us probably want to evangelize in some way. And so we need to recognize this issue in order to best reach others for Christ. I have a story similar to the one I told you a few moments ago, and I've experienced firsthand the damages of using this phrase. I've done further reading on the topic, and my information comes from the book Stop Asking Jesus Into Your Heart, How to Know for Sure That You Are Saved by Pastor J.D. Greer, the book 21 Things God Never Said, Correcting Our Misconceptions About Evangelism by President and CEO of an Evangelistic Association and experienced speaker Larry Moyer, and the book Evangelism, Biblical Approach by Professor and Pastor Dr. Michael Kokoris. Today, I'm first going to explain to you the problem of asking Jesus into your heart. Second, I'll analyze the causes of the problem, and then I'll present a solution. We should completely dispose of the phrase, ask Jesus into your heart, and instead point people to the cross. In order to stop using this phrase, we first need to understand the problem that we face. asking Jesus into your heart is a problem, first, because it causes people to doubt their salvation. Because they were never saved in the first place, they're stuck in a constant cycle of doubt. They'll ask repeatedly for Jesus to come into their heart, but never receive assurance. I experienced this firsthand when I was talking to a young girl about salvation. I asked her if she was sure that she was saved, and she said, "Yeah, I ask Jesus into my heart every night before I go to bed." We often use this phrase with children, but it's really quite harmful. They don't understand what it means. Sometimes, children will even take this phrase literally. In Moyer's book, 21 Things God Never Said, he tells a story about a teacher urging a child to ask Jesus into his heart, and the child responded, "That wouldn't do any good. My mommy says I have a hole in my heart, so if I invited Jesus in, he would just fall out." This phrase is also a problem because it offers false assurance. If you ask many people why they think they're saved or why they think they're going to heaven, they'll tell you, "Well, I said a prayer in first grade." A 2011 Barna study found in Greer's book says that nearly half of American adults have prayed a sinner's prayer at some point in their lives, and therefore think that they're on their way to heaven, even though they live a sinful lifestyle and obviously have no interest in things of God. To quote Moyer's book, 21 Things God Never Said, "We are placing trust in a prayer that was said, instead of a Savior who died on the cross." Professor and pastor Dr. Kokoris gives another reason to stop using this phrase. When you ask Jesus into your heart, there is no concept of relationship. It's a one-time act, and after that, there's no living for God. Now that you understand the seriousness of this problem, let's look at the causes. Knowing the causes will educate us fully for best evangelism. The main problem here is that asking Jesus in your heart is not in the Bible. The origins of the phrase are found in Revelation 3:20. The verse says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him, and dine with him, and he with me." When you look at the context, though, this verse isn't actually about salvation at all. Horace, in his book Evangelism, A Biblical Approach, explains that this verse is found in the letter to Laodicea. God is saying to them that they thought that they have everything that they need, but in reality, they don't. God is calling them to fellowship with him, not to salvation. Even words within this verse have been fused together to give the desired meaning. We like to say the last part, "I will come into him," as in saying that Jesus will indwell the person. But in reality, in and to are separate words. The verse is saying Jesus will come in the church to the person. The phrase, "ask Jesus into your heart," is completely unfounded and made up. Another cause of this problem is that we oversimplify the gospel. Our drive to save as many souls as we can has brought us to somewhat of an easy formula. Moyer, in his book 21 Things God Never Said, says that we have good intentions, but the words that we use make a difference. It changes the message that we send to people. The gospel is a grand story of a loving Savior, and it needs to be told as such to be completely understood. Now that you understand the problems and causes, I will present the solution. With this solution, salvation will be better understood by many, and assurance of salvation will be found more confidently. Here's the solution. We need to stop using the phrase, "ask Jesus into your heart." No one is saved by doing this. We are saved through belief in God and the work of Jesus on the cross. So, as Kukora said in his book, Evangelism, A Biblical Approach, we need to point people to the cross, not to the sinner's prayer. In evangelism, we need to make sure that people completely understand the gospel, that they completely understand the redemptive work of Christ, not just make sure that they say a prayer. People do not need to be coached through a sinner's prayer. With proper understanding of the gospel, they will pour out their hearts to God in acceptance of his salvation. The Holy Spirit indwelling us is a result of salvation, and it's not something that we need to ask for. In conclusion, let's review the main points. The phrase, "ask Jesus into your heart," is a problem because it brings a lack of assurance as well as false assurance. This problem comes from taking the verse out of context and assigning to it a meaning that it doesn't have, and from oversimplifying the gospel. The solution is to dispose of the phrase, "ask Jesus into your heart," and instead point people to the cross. This is not an issue that we can take lightly. Eternity is in the balance. So I challenge you, don't ignore it. treat the gospel with the reverence and respect it deserves, and stop asking Jesus into your heart.
In 1988, a man named Ron Williamson was convicted in the rape and murder of a woman in his hometown of Ada, Oklahoma. He was sentenced to death. Sounds pretty fair to a lot of people, but except it wasn't. The only problem with this was that he was innocent. An innocent man was about to lose his life for no reason. This sounds extreme, but Williamson is not the only one this has happened to. This is a common problem in our justice system. Capital punishment is used a lot, and there are a lot of reasons why it's wrong. 3 states just upheld capital punishment on Election Day: the states of Nebraska, Oklahoma, and California. There are still people who are on death row who are most likely innocent, and there are organizations dedicating their life to stopping this problem. As of July 1st, 2016, there are 2,905 people on death row in the United States. And according to research by Samuel Gross, a law professor at the University of Michigan, roughly 4.1% of people on death row are innocent. And of those people that are on death row now, that would be 120 people in the United States who are sitting on death row who are innocent in their crimes. The sad thing is, the majority of evangelical Christians support capital punishment. According to a 2014 Pew survey, 59% of white evangelicals support capital punishment. That's an issue that the church has been divisively split about, but it doesn't have much support, or people aren't talking about it right now. As someone who enjoys both the Bible and politics, I wrestled with this and studied the topic for about 3 years now. My information comes from the English Standard Version Bible, the book The Innocent Man by John Grisham, the article Christianity in Opposition to the Death Penalty, Late Modern Shifts by Christine Gudorf, the article 139 Wrongful Convictions Cleared, Is Justice Changing from the Christian Science Monitor, the article California, Oklahoma, and Nebraska Vote for Capital Punishment, also from the Christian Science Monitor, and the articles Evangelicals Now Officially Divided on the Death Penalty by Sarah Zylstra. I'll be talking about how the use of capital punishment by the government is a serious problem based on 3 issues: what the Bible says, wrongful convictions, as well as the fact that it does not deter crime, which is the main reason for it. And then solving this problem requires a combination of attention and voter support that it doesn't have right now. The first thing that I want to bring to your attention is that the use of capital punishment is a serious problem, especially when looking at the teachings of the Bible. So when we look at the Bible, we see certain things. The first thing that I really want to point out is in Matthew 5:38 and 39. Many people, when citing that the Bible supports capital punishment, will say that the Bible says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. They did in the Old Testament. Jesus refuted that in the Sermon on the Mount. Here's his words: "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also." Jesus was saying it's not our right to put somebody to death. And he did this in John 8. Many of you are familiar with the story in John 8, 1 through 11, where there is an adulterous woman who's brought to Jesus by some men. And they were trying to trap him. And so they asked him they should ask Jesus what to do with this woman who was caught in the act of adultery. In the Old Testament, that's grounds for being stoned to death. But Jesus said, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone." Jesus stopped the only execution that was really brought before him, but he did not stop his own, because what he had to do was completely different than this. There's another place in Matthew that talks about it. Matthew 12, verse 7. "And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless." Which brings us right back to the wrongful convictions. Because there are people people think are guilty, but they're not. They're guiltless. Although biblical support is the most important item that we have to look at in this situation, the rate of wrongful convictions are alarming as well. According to a report from the National Registry of Exonerations at the University of Michigan Law School, 149 wrongful convictions were overturned in 2015. One of these people who is wrongly convicted but not exonerated in 2015 was, again, Ron Williamson, who I brought up at the beginning. He was the subject of the book The Innocent Man by John Grisham, which was Grisham's first nonfiction work. He served 11 years on death row. And there was another man named Cameron Willingham, who was more high profile. He was sentenced to death because he was suspected of arson and the murder of his 3 children. He was executed in 2004, but now looking at DNA evidence and other legal experts and expert testimony, it's widely believed that he was innocent, but he was executed, so nobody will ever know. Now that you know about the seriousness of wrongful convictions, it is important to examine the most common support for capital punishment, that is, a deterrent of crime. There's actually no evidence that supports this. According to a 2009 poll of national police chiefs conducted by the Death Penalty Information Center, police chiefs ranked the death penalty last among the list of ways to reduce violent crime. Police know it doesn't work. It's not a deterrent. There's absolutely no evidence to support the notion that capital punishment reduces any kind of crime. In actuality, another study done by the Death Penalty Information Center shows that there is actually a negative correlation. In states that have the death penalty as a use of punishment, where it's legal, the violent crime rate is actually higher than in states where the death penalty is banned. That's a problem that a lot of people, the supporters of capital punishment, have, because the whole reason for it is that it deters crime, and it doesn't. Now that we've examined the most compelling evidence about capital punishment and why it should not be supported, let's look at how to solve this issue. There's a little attention on the issue. There's very little. The church doesn't talk about it like we should, and if you look at the election and watch the last few debates, it wasn't talked about at all. I think it's known what parties stand for what. Things go beyond labels, especially there were certain Republican candidates in debates that denounced capital punishment. But there's very little attention on the issue, and if it's going to be changed, there has to be attention. Second is that voters must be educated on the issue. Many are very ignorant on what the Bible teaches and on how it's used. So people must be educated on the issue. And then number 3, Christians have to lead the charge to show love and mercy. When somebody asks you about abortion and if you're pro-life or pro-choice, say you're pro-life, but say you're pro-life all the way around. You support everybody for the right to life. In conclusion, the use of capital punishment by the government is a serious problem based off biblical teachings, wrongful convictions, and the fact that it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And solving this problem requires a combination of attention and voter support. So what are we going to do as Christians? Are we going to stand up to the government? In Romans 13, it says Paul writes that we're called to listen to the government. But we can still change it. We can right a wrong that's been going on for decades in America and centuries. You remember the story of Ron Williamson from The Innocent Man. I said that he served for 11 years on death row. He had a somewhat happier ending. He was exonerated by the use of new DNA evidence, and he lived for about 10 years afterwards, so he was able to experience a little bit of what life he lived.
1952, the first solid organ donation transplant was conducted. A mother and her son were driving along a road when suddenly they were in a horrific crash. They were both in critical condition, so the mother was able to donate her kidney to her son. Unfortunately, the kidney only lasted in working condition for 22 days, but this was still significant because it was the first ever experience they had with donating organs. So after this, they were conducting more tests to see if you could donate organs, and they found 2 years later there were 2 twins who were born, and one of them donated a kidney to the other, and this ended up lasting for 8 years. This started the spiral into more and more information that they learned on transplantation, and now we have many more opportunities and know much more about successful transplantation. So since then, the most common form of solid organ transplantation is the kidney. And
According to the scholarly article, Organ Donation by Drs. Kate Wilkinson and Daniel Peet, this is the most common and it is very effective in our current day and age. Now, the issues of organ donation and the lack of donors that we have is very relevant because many people are without donors, and it's becoming more and more of an issue in our generation even. According to Drs. Wilkinson and Peet, 1,000 people in a year, just in the UK alone, they die every single year from not getting an organ that they need. And this is 3 each day, and that's only in the UK. Now, another reason this is important and relevant is because this brings families together and saves people's lives. Now, my research today comes from a few different sources. One is the British Journal of Surgery by Drs. L. Dibby and S.J. Wigmore. My second source is from the article Organ Donation by Dr. Kate Wilkinson and Dr. Danielle Peet. And my third source is from Organ Donations, Opportunities for Action. This is a book from the Institute of Medicine, and it was written by James Childress and Catherine Liberman. Now, I would like to discuss a few things with you today. First, the need that we have for donations and how it's becoming more of an issue in our society. Also, how you can donate yourself. The impact donating organs can have on yourself and other people. Also, what steps need to be taken in order for this to happen. So now that we have a brief overview of the relevancy of this issue, it's important that we understand how much of a need there is for organ donors. Many people suffer from the lack of getting an organ that they need to survive. According to the book Organ Donation, Opportunities for Action, written by Liberman and Childress, as of March 24th, 2006, there were 91,000 transplant candidates who were on the waiting list for an organ. Now, there has always been a huge divide between the number of people waiting for an organ and the number of people who are giving an organ. In 1995, there were 40,000 organs that were needed and only 20,000 people donated. In 2004, there were 90,000 organs needed and only 30,000 people donated. So this is becoming more and more of an issue, and there are becoming more people who need organs, but the people who are donating are not catching up to this number. Now that we have a firmer understanding of the need for donations, let's take a look into what can be done about this issue. Donations can vary in range of difficulty and risk. There can be donations as simple as giving blood, and there are even opportunities on this campus for all of us to give blood too. According to Drs. Wilkinson and Peet, anyone aged 17 to 65 who is in good health is able to give blood. So I would guess that a lot of you guys are in that range. Now, there are also more extensive operations that can be done. There are things called non-heart beating donations. These are donations that happen post-mortem, so after you die, before you die, you sign up on a list to say that you're willing to give away your organs after you die. Now, the average heart beating donation, which is a donation when you're still alive, that usually provides 3.5 organs for transplantation that you can give away. This is according to the article Non-Heart Beating Donation by the British Journal of Surgery. Now, a non-heart beating, so after you die, if you're willing to give away your organs, this usually only produces about 2 organs that are good for transplantation. So it's a little bit less effective, but it's a much lower risk factor because you're already dead, so you don't have a huge risk, whereas if you do give when you're alive, there's the risk of a surgery, but there are also other benefits to that, such as being able to see the people that you helped in real life. Now, these processes are fairly simple. The biggest risk factor is just the surgery if you choose to donate while you're a heart beating donation. But now that we've discussed some clear ways in which we can help the situation, I would like to tell you a story about someone who was able to experience the life-changing organ donations. There was a girl named Caitlin, and when she was born, she had a very life-threatening problem where her kidney was not working. There was a man who was willing to give up one of his organs, and he was only in his 20s, and he gave up his kidney for her. And she ended up living, and she's now about 8 years old, and she has a very loving family, and they're extremely thankful for the man who was able to give away one of his organs for her. This is very important because it made her life better. It improved
life of her family, and it also gives fulfillment to the people who donate organs. This can give us feelings of fulfillment seeing ourselves help other people. So now that we know what kind of impact we can have on the life of someone who needs an organ, it is important to consider what steps we can all take today and the action that we can have. So I would really urge you all to consider donating organs, even if that's a good first step is simply donating blood. This is a very easy procedure. You go into somewhere, even on campus, and it takes a couple of hours or less. They take your blood and they do all the testing and distribute it themselves. So if you're also interested in actually donating a full organ, you can simply go to organdonor.gov, and this site has a lot of information on different organs and what procedures you have to go through to look into giving one away. And another thing that's also very important if you do decide to donate an organ, especially if you decide to do postmortem non-heart beating donation, is to make sure that your family is aware, because your family is the one who will make sure that the doctors know that you want to donate your organs. So I hope that you all are able to see today the need for organ donations and also what we can do, how this helps families and actually helps yourself as well, and how you can go to organdonor.gov in order to become a donor yourself. Now, in conclusion, I would like to read a quote from a German poet named Goethe, and he once wrote, "Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do."
Proverbs 24:11-12 says, "Rescue those being led away to death, and hold back the staggering towards the slaughter. If you say, 'But we knew nothing about this,' does not he who weighs his heart perceive it? Does he who guards your life know it? Will he not repay everyone according to what they have done?" Abortion, 2.6 every minute, 157 every hour, 3,786 every day, 26,577 every week, 100,000 115,167 every month, 1.382 million every year, and 24.876 million since I was born. These are the abortions in America alone. 21% of the millennial generation has been aborted, and 2.8 babies will have been killed throughout this speech. I've heard many abortion stories, and not every story ends up like October Baby, the true story of a girl who survived abortion. Most abortion stories end up with somebody dying. Luke 1:15 says, "He will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before his birth." A person doesn't magically become a person after they're born. They are a person, a human being, right from conception. Exodus 20:13 says, "Thou shalt not murder. God is the giver and taker of life." Unborn children have personalities, and God set Paul apart. Paul says to the Galatians in Galatians 1:15, God from my mother's womb has set me apart and called me through his grace. God also can tell the personalities of babies because he has created them. For example, Jacob and Esau. In Genesis 25:23 says, "Two nations are in your womb, and two people from within you shall be separated. One will be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." In Psalms 139:13 it says, "For you are created in the utmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." God has made us, and he loves us. We as Christians should want to defend the life that God has created. Proverbs 31:8 says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of those who are destitute." And destitute means broken, distressed, and needy. Who is more destitute than an unborn child? I am credible to talk about this subject because I have worked with Crisis Pregnancy and Right to Life Michigan for 3 years now, working with fundraisers and events and raising money and organizations at fairs. My information comes from a book called Right to Life by Evelyn Luggage, Christian Tomscat, and Stephen Euter. Another book called Abortion After Roe, The Abortion After Legalization by Joanna Schoen, my NIV Bible, and the website Right to Life in Michigan. But for you guys, it would be Indiana Right to Life, for information about how you can be a part of this issue. Through this speech, I will address what abortion is, why it is a problem, and how we can help fix it. What is abortion? Well, according to Abortion After Roe, the legalization of abortion, and Right to Life, abortion is the termination of life, the killing of an unborn baby, through dismemberment, tearing apart pieces of the baby and pulling them out piece by piece. Saline abortion, which is the burning of the baby from inside the womb, and suction and blending, which is where you suck out the baby and it gets blended up. You can be arrested for infant abuse, but babies are brutally murdered before they're born every day. Abortion is legal up to 24 to 26 weeks, depending on the state. That is, a baby that old is the size of a soccer ball and can survive outside the womb with minimal doctor care. Thousands of abortions happen daily, and not for the reasons that you would think. Less than 0.5% of abortions happen because of pressure from parents. 1% is pressure from a partner. 1% is rape or incest. 6% is because of the mother's health or the baby's health. And 58% is because the mother said she just wasn't ready. So many expected mothers feel scared and alone during this time, and we need to help them realize their options, such as adoption or keeping the baby. As Christians, we need to have compassion and show love and understanding to those who had abortions or are thinking about that path. Finally, here is what we can do. First, we can pray that the mothers and the people around them find encouragement and are encouragement to each other. Second, we can donate used baby clothes, baby things, toys, blankets, and new car seats, because donating a used car seat is against the law in most states. And we can donate money. Right to Life has a donation option on their website. And third, we can volunteer. We can help with fundraisers. We can become friends with these expecting mothers and be somebody that they can lean on. And we can be a good example. And lastly, we can speak up. This issue should not take a back seat. We can share this information with other people and learn more so that we know how we can help. Mothers need to know the repercussions of having an abortion. Not only does it murder a child, but it also can cause depression and other health issues to the mother. Let me quickly review what I've talked about and leave you with one more thing. Abortion is a real issue, but we can stop it. Psalms 127:3 says, "Truly children are a gift from the Lord, the fruit of the womb is a reward." Our generation can help end abortion. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Long. When I was 20 years old, I enlisted in the United States Navy due to war. The cause of that was 9/11, as you all may know, hopefully you do know. When I enlisted, I was not thinking about my future at all. I wasn't thinking about what I was going to get out of the military. I wasn't thinking about anything but serving and helping out our country that was really in need. My topic is extremely relevant to you guys because every single one of you had to sign your selective service card when you turned 18 years old. If you don't know what that is, it's your draft card. If you didn't sign it, it's a federal offense and you can go to prison for it. The average person who was in the military from 2000 to 2014 was the age of 18 to 24. Just every single one of you. Incredible to talk about this information, about this topic, because I served 4 years in the military. I did 4 years of reserve afterwards. I received benefits as an active duty, and I also received received benefits as a veteran. I'm receiving them now. A lot of my information comes from two specific books. Military Education Benefits for College by David Renza, who also served in the Army, United States Army. He was a medal recipient. And he is the director of the military administration. He's a very smart man. Another book is Veterans Benefits and Care. The author is Matthew Bradley. He also served in the United States military, and he is the assistant director for Veterans Affairs. The next book is Ask Not, the Inauguration of JFK by Thurston Clark. In preview, I will tell you why you should serve in the military. I'll compare advantages of serving to not serving, and compare advantages of being a veteran. So in transition, you now understand why I'm speaking to you. So I'm going to jump into a couple reasons on why you should serve. For one, when you join the military, you're doing just that. You're serving every single person in America that calls themselves Americans. You're doing the one thing that Jesus did for everybody. He served. That's what we should do, is serve every single person. It's a great joy that you get from that. People recognize it and they thank you for it. Next is you will belong to one of the oldest groups in America. The United States Marines was, I'm going to use Marines, was the very first formed military that we have, but the military is one big unit. We all are brothers and sisters, and it is a group that while you are in and when you are out, we take it very seriously, and each one of us are brothers and sisters. And next transition, now you see what you get out of the military just by serving. Now I'll explain the advantages of serving to not serving. So the first advantage of serving in the military is job security. In the military, when you enlist, you sign up for 3, 4, 5, 6-year terms. Unlike Professor Lukens, who could lose her job tomorrow. Hopefully she does not. But there's no guarantee in the real world. And you guys, when you guys graduate college and you go out to the real world, you will actually find out how the little businesses are all connected to each other. In 2008, we hit a huge depression. And around here in northern Indiana, it was so hard. All these little businesses were impacted so much. Our unemployment rate went sky high, highest it's ever been. 2, the military provides you with advanced technical training in different career fields. I used my career field. I was a welder and fabricator, and I actually used it when I got out. I got a really good job, and I was trained extremely well. And you also learn leadership skills. When you go to an employee with your resume and they see that you have and were in the military experience, they know, one, you're dedicated. You'll come to work every single day. You'll get the job done. They get that already just by you being in the military, if you got honorable discharge. It's a difference. Yeah, it's a difference. So next is pay and medical benefits. So according to the Department of Defense, military pay as of January 1st, 2016, starting out as E1 under 2 years. E1 is enlisted. It's first rank. You make $18,800 for a year. Your officer makes $44,881 for their first year. If you serve 20 years in as an E9, you make $70,000 a year. As an officer, you can make up to $200,000 a year. And this is all depending on how fast, how smart, and how well you apply yourself in the military. I've seen chiefs come in my 4 years, they have made chief in 5, 6 years, and I've seen other people not make chief 18 years. It all depends on how well you apply yourself, how well you think you are, how well you do. Next is dental and medical. When you're in the military, you get absolutely free medical and dental. Unlike now, that's our biggest struggle, is paying for your medical, your dental. You break an arm, you got to go get that. You have kids, it costs you $20,000 just to have a kid. In the military, it's free. You buy your lunch, that's it. You pay nothing, braces, nothing, it's free. Everything, shots, free. And they keep records. And they make sure you get everything. Also, when you start out in the military, you start out with 30 days leave on the board. That's yours to take whenever you'd like, if it's approved, when it's approved. You also get a clothing allowance. That's up to $1,100 a year. They give you $1,100 to go buy clothes. Tell me what job will give you that. What job out here will give you that? Also, you get BAH. That's basic housing allowance. They give you money to live off campus. If you're married, they give you money for that. To get married, they give you extra money. We're talking $1,500. Tell me what corporation will give you money for getting married. Travel. In 4 years, I did one deployment. I've been to Sicily, Turkey, Africa, Kuwait, Spain, Dubai, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and a few more that I won't say. You'll see the world. It's beautiful. Weapons training. Weapons training is fun. Who doesn't want to shoot weapons? Everybody loves weapons. If you don't love it, you will love it. In basic, you train with two main weapons, shotgun, handgun, and assault rifle. It can go on if you get into any special forces, platoons, or any infantry. You are trained more vigorous on things. Now you realize the advantages for serving in the military post and not. Let's dive into the advantages for retiring from the military. So retirement requires 20 years spent in the military. You get full pension and medical after 20 years that you retire. That's an officer that made $200,000 a year. His full pension is up to $40,000 a year for doing nothing after he retires. After 20 years, it'll take you 40 to 50 years to retire somewhere outside in the real world. Also, education benefits. There are many different education benefits. There's the federal tuition assistance, which pays you $4,500 a year or $750 a course. The MGI bill. I use the MGI bill. I paid nothing for my school. I actually get paid to come to school. They pay me $1,100 a month to come to school to learn, just because I served and I'm a vet. So no school loans. I don't have to worry about none of that. I get paid to come do this. There's also veterans loans that you can buy houses and things like that with no money down, which is really big. In conclusion, I've talked about why you should serve. You're being a part of one of the oldest clubs. You're serving America. The benefits for active duty, your training, the travel, the skills you learn. The benefits for vets, it's the pension, the medical and dental, the educational. And my vivid conclusion is this is a lot your country does for you for serving. And I want to end with a quote from JFK from his inauguration. And he says, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country."
When I was younger, I heard the story of King Midas. If you don't know the story of King Midas was a king who loved gold and money so much that he wished that he would have a golden thumb, so anything he touched would turn to gold. Well, with King Midas's greed came punishment. After a while of having this golden touch, he wanted to hug his daughter. He ended up hugging his daughter and turning her into gold. This is a legend, but this amount of greed is very present in today's society. Money is a part of everyone's life. But especially among Christians, money is always seen as evil. Our credibility comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. Census Bureau, the Urban Institute, National Center for Charitable Statistics, and the New Living Translation of the Bible. The problem that I'm speaking about is that people see money as evil. The solution to this is understanding how money can be used to glorify God. Once you understand the problem with seeing money as evil, you will understand the causes better. 1 Timothy 6:10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." This is the main Bible verse that people quote in order to say that money is evil, but oftentimes that is misconstrued, and people will say it like, we'll cut part of it off and say money is the root of all evil, and leave out the love of money is the root of all evil. The biggest issue with money being seen as evil is not that it is evil, but that it is used wrongly. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released a report in 2012 detailing the different places that money was donated. When I read this report, it was pretty startling to me. 91% of the money donated in 2012 was donated to political parties, while only 5% was donated to charities. This is what makes money bad. It's the things we do with it. It is not that money is bad in itself. It is what we do with it that makes it wrong. Now that you understand why people think money is bad, I will tell you why money is actually good. In order to understand why money is good, we must understand what the Bible says about money. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers it little by little makes it grow." God calls us to make money and save it in order to grow and help others grow. 1 Samuel 2:7 says, "The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts." The Lord provides money in different forms for each person. The Lord did not intend us to be equal in money, so we cannot think that money made somebody evil because they are more wealthy than us, because the Lord intended it to be that way. Another way that you can see money as good is to think of money as a good, godly gift. The U.S. Census Bureau said that in 2015, the average household income was $57,000. If each household donated $1,000 out of that $57,000, that would be $125 billion donated each year. The National Center for Charitable Statistics in 2013 said there were 500,300 nonprofits in America. That would equal out to $250,000 per nonprofit. That money could go a long way with helping kids through college, helping build homes for the homeless, or getting homeless people into homes, and helping cure things like disease, or helping to treat people with diseases or other illnesses. In conclusion, the problem is money is misconstrued as evil. Many people see money as evil due to misinterpreted Bible verses or teachings. The solution is to think of money as a good, godly gift as shown in the Bible. 1 Timothy 6:17 through 19 says, "Command those who are rich in the present world, not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment.